Hello everybody, my name is Ian Kirkpatrick. I'm an author, idiot, and loin streamer, and today welcome to my anguish that was Leather and Lace by Lauren Sevier and Abbie Lynn Smith. We're here because one, Dottie asked me to read this on the server, and I do read things that people request me to read. We have a fun time together, so come join the server, have some fun with us. Everybody is pretty cool, most of the time. You know who you are. But otherwise, we have a lot of fun over there. And the other thing is, my book reviews are an exorcism. I hadn't planned to do a book review on this because I just wanted to get through it. But then I had to get it out of my head and also to let you guys know of the suffering. So that's what we're going to do today. But before we get started, number one, if you enjoy what I do on this channel, please remember to like, share, and subscribe for more. Number two, if you would like to be featured on the channel, check out the links down in the description below. Number one way is through Lamwai, which is the monthly prompt thing here on the channel where I give you a prompt, you respond, and first Monday video of the month is us just basking in the creative glory of everybody's genius, or, you know, the top 10 if there are 10, because I can't go on for 5 hours, you guys. The second way is, if you are an indie author and you would like to be featured on the channel, send in your first chapter and your cover, and at some point they'll be read here on the channel, usually Monday videos, except for the first Monday, and hopefully that'll help more readers find your book, because your book deserves to find its audience, and I try to do what I can since I can't read every book. So there's that. And then third thing is, if you would like to check out any of my books, they're available down in the description below, any of your favorite bookstores. Hope you check them out. Have a good time. So there is that. Now, to Leather and Lace, the second book in the Fool's Adventure series. I did a book review of the first book with Monty over on her channel. I'll link that at the end if you want to check it out, if I remember to link it. Hopefully I remember to link it. And it was a lot of fun. She is truly a joy, but she only made it halfway through the first book. I actually had to read this first book a second time, because the first time I read it last year, but I wasn't going to opine on it. Then I was like, I need to talk about this book, because that's how I cope with my experiences. And I wouldn't have read this book except Dottie. You know what you did. And here we are. So for the record, there are 4 first-person perspectives in this book instead of 2, which was the first book. In this book, you've got Jesse and Bonnie, who are carryovers from book 1, and then you've got Will Ellis and Savannah as the 2 new first-person perspectives. So just know that, and then everything kind of bounces around between the 4 of them. Also, Bonnie's name for the majority of this book is actually Audrey, because she has amnesia. With that said, we open with probably one of the worst ways this novel could have opened. Not confidence-inducing. The previous novel ended with Bonnie being taken away by Six Gun after she sacrificed herself to save everyone else from being killed by him, and then her being taken anyway. However, the final bits of the novel were Jesse talking about how he'd grown as a character and how he wasn't going to stop until he found Bonnie again and got her back, because now he was, quote, a motherfucking outlaw, unquote. What's happened since then? It's been 3 years since Bonnie was taken. Jesse's become an alcoholic, and it is only at this point in time, eventually, that Harry, his now 13-year-old brother, tells Jesse to stop being such a sad sack and start doing something to find Bonnie. And Jesse is like, oh shit, you're right! I am wasting time and being terrible. I should stop being mopey and do something. This made me think of Grady Hendrix doing the time skip with Patty after her suicide attempt. Based on the high tension of that moment, it made no sense to do a time skip and then make the character completely inactive as if it was right after the event anyway. Turns out, over the last 3 years, aside from drinking as a hobby to deal with how Jesse is so defanged that he can't even be bothered to actually pursue Bonnie, he also became a caged fighter going by the name Montana, which Monty really loved that. Now, he also justified how he couldn't possibly go looking for Bonnie because he's got Harry, and Harry was sick or something. But number one, he's sick for 3 years. Like, you couldn't go looking for 3 whole years. And then 2, you're on a settlement with other people, with your uncle, and you mostly ignored Harry in the first book anyway, so you couldn't have, like, left him with family and then gone on your way to go and chase after Bonnie. If there was ever a time that Harry was safe, and it was safe for you to leave to pursue danger, this would have been it. So the setup of the novel immediately failed for me. Also, the thirst hits instantly whenever Jesse thinks about Bonnie. Moving on, Jesse goes into a cage match as Montana and wins. As he gets back with his uncle Mickey, he hears we found her, because they'd apparently been looking for Bonnie and she'd been missing. Which is also weird. Just, I don't understand the setup and how it happened the way that it happened, or why it happened the way that it happened. Because you'd think they've also got contacts with Will Ellis, because Will Ellis is there, and Will Ellis has apparently been sending them letters, and that's how they found her, I think. But Will Ellis has been with her this whole time, so, like, I don't understand how it was just now that they found her. I know that he wasn't telling them that she had amnesia because he didn't know how, but, like, was Will Ellis just not telling anybody where she was all of this time, even though he apparently is not aggressive towards Jesse and them? I don't understand. We skip over to Bonnie's perspective, which for the remainder of this novel, she will be called Aubrey. This is where it is. Until the final chapter where she's Bonnie again. And this is because she has amnesia and has been living as Aubrey for the last couple of years. I assume that's her birth name, because she's living with her father, which I wasn't sure if he was actually her father for a while, or if this was a man pretending to be her father since she had amnesia. Now that she's returned to New Orleans, we join her as she wakes up after having a fling with some random guard that doesn't work for her father anymore. She's unhappy about her promiscuousness, but it helps her cope with her unhappy, privileged life. She's also dreaming of a stranger that she can't quite put her finger on, but it is Jesse. Her handmaiden slash servant, Savannah, comes in, which Monty was also really happy about that name, comes in to get rid of her one-night stand for her because she can't be bothered to just tell him to get out and walk away. Get rid of him, she tells Savannah. Dude is thrown off because he apparently didn't realize that the fling wasn't serious, even though Bonnie has apparently had something of a reputation for sleeping around. This is kind of a running theme, because Will Ellis also has a reputation of sleeping around, but also people want to be in relationships with him even though they know what he's like. When it's just the two girls, they get to calling the fling man not very attractive and also dumb, but he's super enthusiastic in bed. Savannah's like, you should stop sleeping with the guards, and Bonnie's like, lol, I sleep with the maids too. Because for some reason we need to know just how much of a sex addict Bonnie really is, though we never see this, like her hitting on the maids through the rest of this book. Or any women. Like, she doesn't even hit on Savannah, and you'd think that she would maybe hit on Savannah. The two of them then talk about Bonnie's dreams and how they leave her wanting something. She's talking about how much pain she's in and how she needs glow root to silence it. Also how she's not in the mood to fake a polite smile for her night guest. Then she goes out to the stables where she meets Will Ellis to summon the guards to take the guy out of her room. I'm not sure why Bonnie couldn't get that out on her own. Then she fights Will for some self-defense lessons, and her body is punished by Will's cruelty. Even though later we'll also hear that Will cherishes her as a best friend, but in that moment, very specifically, he was being cruel to her on purpose, and she acknowledges that he was being cruel. So again, I don't understand the character dynamics here. Though she's barely standing anymore, Bonnie wants to keep going, but Will finds a reason to walk away. Savannah joins Bonnie, and they go to the kitchen to eat. The older woman who works in the kitchen also warns Bonnie against sleeping around because it's dangerous for her. From what I hear, you need to stop kissing the staff before you wind up in more trouble than you bargained for, she says. This feels like foreshadowing, but it never really comes to fruition. Since Bonnie's told she smells from the workout, she goes to clean up. She then meets with her father for lunch, and her father informs her that a man is coming from Manhattan Island later to discuss possible business deal, which includes marriage to her. He says marriage is the only way to protect Bonnie. The trade will be a disaster without it, though he doesn't want to do, and he doesn't want to do this at all, but it is the only way. Bonnie's not given much of a choice and is expected to perform appropriately for the guests. She says she won't marry someone that she doesn't love, but at least she'll give it a try. Her and her father trade I love yous, and Bonnie leaves the room. Switch back over to Jesse, and he's on his way to Louisiana after closing things out with Mickey. There's also some vague mention of Six Gun and whoever he works for having something to do with killing Jesse's family. Then he sets off. Meanwhile, we now get to the first and only visit of Clara, because the first book didn't character assassinate her enough. She's sleeping with Will, and she's also a businesswoman who is fairly powerful. She's getting up to go on a trip and to leave Louisiana, and she will not be back for the remainder of the book, so this is just a way to get rid of her. There is some back and forth to show Will sleeping with her to try and demonize her more, and then she's gone. Will Ellis then wallows in self-pity and hatred for being a hired gun and missing Bonnie because she doesn't remember who anyone is, and he's been faking a persona just to take care of her. Will Ellis then meets with Bonnie's father, Lee, and discovers that he's looking for a cage fighter to bet on. Then we switch over to a short bout with Savannah just to see her interacting with some of the other servants in the house. Mainly, we see her interacting with Sebastian, who will be her rival in love for Will Ellis. Savannah's sent to get a cake for the guests. Despite there being great cooks in the house, she's asked to go and get a king cake from the store instead. When she comes back, Sebastian takes the cake, splits it between his goon servant buddies, and they eat and destroy it. So now Savannah is going to have to make a cake because she doesn't have the money to buy another one, and yeah, that's mostly it. There's also a flashback to the night of Bonnie arriving 3 years ago, and how she showed up with brain damage from knocking her head. Her brain was swelling, so they drilled in a hole to release the pressure. She was given a bunch of glow root at the time to ease the pain and calm her down, and this eventually caused her to have a glow root addiction. This also caused more brain damage. It also, we'll learn eventually, caused a miscarriage because she was pregnant with Jesse's baby. Savannah then kisses Will Ellis. Savannah then kissed Will Ellis that night. Savannah also kissed Will Ellis. She was so enthralled with him, and she thought that he was enthralled with her, but the next day Will Ellis slept with Sebastian and was open about it. So it sounds like Savannah kind of just backed off because she was like, I don't stand a chance. We return to Jesse and Mickey, now talking to Will Ellis in New Orleans about the circumstances surrounding Bonnie, her surgery, her memory loss, ownership to her father, and the kind of dirty dealings her dad Zachary Lee is into. Glow root, slave trade, brothel, smuggling, you know, nothing out of the ordinary for this kind of setting. The way to get Jesse to Bonnie, though, is through the cage fights, since Jesse's built a reputation for himself as Montana and Lee is looking for a fighter. They're going to go and try to broker a deal to make Jesse into Lee's fighter. Also, Jesse asks about Bonnie and is told how Bonnie doesn't remember anything, and it's so painful. Also, Will Ellis has also been hiding the truth from both her and Jesse all of these years because it was just too painful to tell anybody anything. Why now? I don't really know. At the ring, Jesse's introduced to not only Lee, but also Lucas Rutherford, the man who is from Manhattan that has been promised to Bonnie. Jesse wipes the floor with his match in the ring and is quickly snatched up by Lee to be his fighter. He will now be given room and board on the estate. Jesse's shown around the estate, including the quarters that he'll be living in, which are separate from the house. As soon as he's alone, he goes into the house to be looking for Bonnie with the excuse that he's the new guy, so he kind of just got lost and he didn't know where he was going. Eventually, he stumbles into the library, where she is sitting and reading a book in the windowsill. Though she is startled enough to say, "Who the fuck are you?" The both of them are also immediately, and I mean immediately, aroused. I'm talking about Singing in the Rain over here is happening live, and Jesse has brought the umbrella in his pants. It doesn't help that she was also reading sexual poetry. The two of them flirt, thirst, and introduce themselves. Jesse is ready to jump on that as soon as he can and remind Bonnie of exactly who she is with his penis. So the two of them chat, flirt, and Bonnie angsts while Jesse's asking about her new scars, how she's been. Jesse asks if Bonnie believes in love, and she says no, she doesn't believe in fairy tales either. Staring longingly at each other, they're getting close to falling into each other's arms when Savannah comes running in to tell Bonnie that the guy Bonnie slept with before, you know, the guard from before, he's been looking for her. Bonnie's panicking because this also now breaks up what she and Jesse had just been doing. Bonnie also doesn't want to deal with the consequences of her actions, as is per kind of usual for her. The random guy bursts into the library and begins threatening Bonnie with his father's power. Which is like, why would you do that? Her father owns/runs New Orleans. What kind of power do you think you got, bro? Then Lucas also stumbles into this awkward shuffle of a situation. The random goon threatens Bonnie even more by calling her a slut to Lucas's face, or with the threat of calling her a slut to Lucas's face. Lucas talks about setting up a deal with Jesse over cage match fighting things, but he says they need to talk to Mr. Lee before doing anything because Mr. Lee owns his contract. Lucas agrees and is guided to the door, leaving Bonnie behind for some reason, though he says he hopes to see her at lunch. I'm like, why wouldn't you escort her out of this weird situation with these men? With Lucas gone, Bonnie steps up to the rando to threaten him, but Jesse steps up to threaten him instead. The random guy runs off, and Bonnie is offended that Jesse thought that she needed his help. Though she's like, I guess thanks for the help, but I'm still in a mess because I have to impress that weirdo from Manhattan while he's here. My dad says so. Yeah, I'm real convinced that she's gonna try for her dad, just like she said so. I don't think so. Jessie offers to help her out with whatever situation she's in, so long as she's giving him 6 hours a week to charm her, like just sporadically. He just wants to hang, talk to her, make her fall in love with him, you know, the usual. Though she fights it, she eventually agrees because his help is better than the alternative, which is that guy threatening her or dealing with her dad or whatever. As Will Ellis comes to the table later to sit down with Mr. Lee and his guests, though he's there early. Will Ellis comes to a table later to sit down with Mr. Lee and his guests, though he's there early, and he hears Lucas and his friends talking about how crazy Bonnie is, but she's hot and crazy ones are always great in bed. You never see this sort of personality or character come up for Lucas, so it just feels inserted at this point to try to demonize him, but he never comes off as this type of guy, like in the future, ever. One of Luke's buddies flirts with Savannah as she comes in to serve them. Then Will is having a dick measuring contest and also flirting with Savannah. By flirting, I mean there's some mild sexual harassment going on, and they're at each other's throats. Will acts totally inappropriate in front of his higher roller guests, but there will be no consequences for him whatsoever because, of course not. There are also references to Savannah being angry, her dissing on whatever woman will have to bear Will Ellis's children, other things like that, because there is a lot of tension between them, and she just straight up hates him for no apparent reason. We're also told later in the afterword by the authors that Savannah deals with the world with kindness and generosity. And I failed to see that in the way this played out, like, at all. She could have been gentler, but it's like the authors thought this needed every girl to be a girl boss. There are other ways, unless she's being bullied. Like, you're being bullied or you're standing up to Will Ellis because you know he's your eventual love interest. There was no being kind and gentle to Will Ellis. It was always at each other's throats, which is awkward. Lucas asks Mr. Lee what Will Ellis even does for work since he's being so disruptive. Will answers, remaining sassy and vague because he's more like a personal hitman than anything. Eventually, the king cake is brought out for all of them to consume, and Will Ellis makes a comment about how Savannah made it from scratch and it's delicious. For apparently no reason, Lee gets pissed because he's like, I don't care how good the cakes are, you were supposed to buy one. I don't know why you would have this outburst in front of your guests either, even if you were upset and thought your servant was lying to you and did this to you. If everybody is just happy and fine, then you go with it, and then afterwards you discipline her because you think she's stealing from you, but not like in front of your guests. And while I can get him being angry at thinking that she's stealing from him, I also don't know why he wouldn't have used his employees that he hired specifically for their specialties over a store-bought cake that's going to be more generic, especially in a post-apocalyptic setting where you would think that stuff like a king cake specialty would be one, more expensive and two, harder to find. It just makes sense if your employees can do something like that and you're in this sort of setting. Remember, this is supposed to be a post-apocalyptic setting, even if it doesn't feel like it pretty much ever. But you'd have to do that. Anyway, Savannah gets yelled at, probably for the purpose of victimizing her more, and she's going to be punished, all thanks to Will Ellis for opening his mouth about her making the cake. Lee, as Will and Savannah meet him in the office, where he dresses Savannah down, but says that he'll let it go. He also informs Savannah that it is her job to help Bonnie charm Lucas because Bonnie has social difficulties and can't get along well with others in social settings. I wish this was built up more into head trauma, because head trauma can change who a person is depending on what part of the brain it affects, but that's never actually built into for this. Bonnie was always charming. In book 1, she used her sexual prowess to get what she wanted. At least that's half of what we were told. But here, she is supposedly socially awkward. Why? I could believe that it was the head trauma, but it's just not built in there. And then when she recovers herself later, it's just like a magic bullet, and she's literally the same person in the end as she was in the beginning of this book. But anyway, Savannah is told to be support staff for Bonnie and make sure that the men get what they want in order to be delighted. Even if they want to have sex with her, she has to give it over, because of course she does. After Savannah's dismissed, Lee and Will talk about Lucas and his family ties, his father being openly against slave trade, and Lucas is secretly doing slave trade in the background. I don't get how this is some sort of bombshell. When Jessie was told about Lee, we were told that Lee was also involved in the slave trade, so I don't get why Lee would care if it was legal or illegal slave trade. And it's only illegal because New York has like a sanctuary status on slaves, so Lee could just be like, well, that's totally dumb and that's a bad point for for Lucas's father to make. If Lucas is onto this, then he's going to be a better partner than Lucas's father. So of course, at least Lucas recognizes the ridiculousness a bit, because he goes, and why do I care about this? Will's answer is just because. You're a respectable man. If you're going to be involved with the slave trade, then you're going to do it in a non-hypocritical way like Lucas is, where he undermines his father's public stance. Look, so it's not the slave trading that's the problem. You would just do it on top the table, not lie about it underneath the table. I have a feeling that the majority of society is kind of just used to slave trading because it's post-apocalyptic, and I don't think that is the biggest thing on everybody's mind, but that just might be me. It's so dumb. I don't understand this choice. You can't pretend to make someone look bad by going illegal versus legal slavery. Like, that's the argument here. Sure, we're involved in the slave trade, but it's the legal slave trade. Or we're not hypocrites because we say it's good and we do it, as opposed to saying it's not good but doing it anyway. Even though Lucas doesn't say that it's good, his father says it's good, but he's not living up to his father's expectations, whatever. We're the moral ones, is the bottom line. How is Lucas's father's stance even any of his business? Because kids can disagree with their parents. If anything, Lucas doing what he's doing just shows cutthroat entrepreneurship to maximize profit that someone like Lee might actually admire. This is also never really explored because theoretically Bonnie was also slave traded. So how he's chill about all of this when his daughter was taken from him at some point, I'm not really sure. The whole timeline between Bonnie being taken as a child and being returned to this guy who I didn't even realize was her real father didn't ever really make sense, and kind of got confusing the more it was ignored. They also talk about how Bonnie would hate her father if she knew what his business did so he knows that his daughter was slave traded, but he's fine with the slave trading so long as it's not his daughter. You'd think that there would be kind of that personal thing going on that's like, oof, maybe, and Will could have used that as his in to go, hey, like, your business is kind of the reason why you lost your daughter in the first place a couple of years ago. You think that you might want to not? Once the talk is over, Will Ellis heads back to the horse stalls where Sebastian has come looking for him to beg that they get together and be an item. After all of this time that they've hooked up, he wants a real relationship. Will wants to forget his life, but also thinks so poorly of himself that he can't be in a relationship. He doesn't deserve it. He's not good enough, but he can fuck around. Seb's fine with that setup, but will continue to probe Will to see if he'll ever give in to a relationship. Will's over here crying as clothing comes off. You want me to be something I'm not, he says, and Seb's like, we could leave, and you don't have to be a hitman that you hate being so much. You could be something so much better, Will. In the middle of this moment, Jesse comes up to them. Seb gets mad, thinking that Will is now doing something with Jesse, even though he knows that Will is like, I'm not being with you, we're not together. Seb is getting mad, thinking that Will is with Jesse and doing things with Jesse, even though he just agreed that it's fine, that Will is loose and they're not really together, and he gets it. Will's over here panicking about Seb's feelings of jealousy, despite them not being in a relationship, and they both know it, and Seb just said that it's fine, and Will is like, yeah, we're never gonna be in a relationship, but yeah, let's just add this random panic to the situation for more drama. All that Jesse came for was to ask who Lucas is, and Will doesn't want to talk about this today, but Jesse's not letting it go, and he's also pissed because people are gossiping, thinking that he and Will are having sex, because, you know, they share a room or something. Jesse asks how big of a threat Lucas is, and Will is like, well, since she doesn't remember who she is, he's kind of a threat because he's got it made. I don't get how this is even a point of view when Bonnie herself is like, not really interested. She said that she'd try to like Lucas, but has done nothing to try because, you know, he's not endgame, so the authors didn't even try to pretend that he ever had a chance. This is an attempt to force stakes and tension by going, you need to work faster, Jesse, before she falls in love with someone else. Don't worry, she's not going to. Jesse's like, I don't want to charm Audrey. He's in love with Bonnie, and Audrey isn't Bonnie. But he's going to have to like this new person because that's just who she is now. It's not like it's even a problem for him. He's so attracted to her already, and Audrey is really not that different from Bonnie. It's just that she doesn't remember Jesse, and she's wearing a dress. That's pretty much the biggest difference for her. So Will's like, what are you gonna do to charm? And Jesse is like, well, I've blackmailed her into spending time with me every week. I think that we're making progress. I saw a spark in her eyes. Jesse then writes a letter to Harry to tell him that he's got Bonnie and he's working on getting her to remember who she is now. Then he asks Will how to send a letter without Lee knowing that it's happening. Apparently, it's through Lee's very own staff, Eddie, the kitchen woman. She slips messages out of town under her employees' nose so that they can keep secrets. While talking to Eddie, Will and Jesse bicker more, resulting in Jesse saying that he's going to teach Will how to fight because he wants to beat him up. Will's like, lol, what? And Jesse is just like, bite me, bitch. So they go outside to fight in the yard with a circle of servants around them watching. And then Bonnie shows up to watch as well, just as Jesse beats Will down. And she approaches Jesse and then takes him down easily when he's not looking because hashtag just girl boss things. Also, Jesse is so sweaty, and we're reminded that he's fighting and sweaty, and his jeans are sticking in all sorts of horny places. And anytime Bonnie and Jesse are in the same room, we must be reminded that the humidity has gone up because they are constantly frothing. Meanwhile, seeing Jesse again, Bonnie's reminded that Jesse said, "I will make you love me." Then Jesse and Bonnie go off to spend their agreed upon time together in the library, where he asks if she really reads all of these books. Turns out there's a collection of cowboy romance novels in the estate, but they're all Savannah's. And Jesse is like, "I want you to read those saucy cowboy books you're holding while I watch you." So Bonnie sits down and does just that. But the staring while reading makes Bonnie uncomfortable, and she eventually loses her temper and slams the book down, demanding Jesse say something. He says he's trying to figure out Bonnie. She's like, "What?" And getting thirsty again and is like, "I have to know this guy. He's so familiar." The two of them get closer, temperatures rising, she's in pain, headaches, and they talk about it while getting close. Jesse makes some vague references to being in love at one point in time. Jesse makes some reference to being in love at one point, and Bonnie's longing for something, but also kind of takes it personally that Jesse was in love with someone else at some point, and she's so sorrowful about it. It doesn't matter that she just met him. He has a past, and it's not me. He doesn't say anything really about the woman that he used to love, or that it's Bonnie that he's literally talking about. The two of them bond over trauma and how Bonnie's being lied to by everyone around her about all of the scars on her body. It was an accident, is what she was told, and that Jones had abducted and raped her and tried to have her killed. This is also supposed to be her uncle, so like, did we forget that that was what was stated in the first book? She assumes it was her father's fault that it happened, though we don't know really why it happened. But then she adds, "I think that's why he's so protective of me." I'm not really sure I believe that if he's willing to trade Bonnie to a baddish man for a trade deal. It's just, we've got no solid characterization for any of these people, and everything seems really whatever works at the time. Jesse asks if he can get more time with Bonnie every week, and Bonnie asks how long it's been since Jesse lost his loved one, and then she says if he'd asked her to fuck, she would definitely not have said no. She also then goes on about how smart she is and how much training she has, but it's overlooked as she's seen as nothing more than a hot girl to marry off to someone else. She also says her only charm is between her thighs, and clearly Jesse knows this now after talking to her for more than 5 minutes. For me, this low self-esteem thing really didn't work for her character because everyone in the house likes her, and she's the one who sells her body out for a distraction from her pain. Like, you can't pile on all of this stuff and make it work. Sex addiction, sexual liberation, and empowerment, drug addiction, trauma related to body image, but also confidence to walk around in whatever, hit on whoever, do whatever, be super smart and admit that you're overlooked by others, charm your way with potential love interests, but also be like, "I don't have any value but my sex. Everyone thinks so, even me." None of these elements are written to work together, but instead just sort of thrown together on the same character to make her both the most victimized and the most empowered character in the story. Also, then on top of that, the continual, "I'm notoriously bad with people." So forced to be awkward or repulsive that doesn't work because it doesn't show in anything in any of her character interactions, and it never does. Maybe a little bit aloof because she sleeps with guys and then walks out, but she doesn't even hide that that's what she's doing. Bonnie even says she has allies and friends all over the place. So then they move on from that conversation where Bonnie's immediately asking Jesse if he's known a woman's touch since the last time he fell in love. When Jesse says no, she's like, "That's so cruel to yourself. You should let me touch you." Then she's getting closer and thinking about how Jesse makes her want to be a different person. She's getting closer, holding him, saying if she loved you, then she'd forgive you for not being able to protect her. And despite how Jesse started out this whole interaction saying he didn't have enough time to court her appropriately in competition with Lucas, and thus he asked to have more time, he is the one who interrupts this moment between the two of them as she is coming in because they are out of time. Bro, she wasn't even asking. Take advantage of her bonding with you and wanting to be close to you. Why are you ending this? It is doing exactly what you wanted. But then Bonnie feels stupid because he's like, whoa, we're out of time. And she was coming on to him and all of this stuff. And she's like, oh, I'm being rejected right now. So she starts stammering back. Because, of course, the dude rejected her as soon as she was getting really, really close and being physical with him. And it makes the legit no sense why you would do that when you're trying to court somebody before someone else. Bro, she wants you. You are shooting yourself in the dick. So then Jesse says next time they spend time together, he wants to draw Bonnie. And just as they start discussing that, she leaves. She falls against the wall outside the room, biting so hard into her lip that she tastes blood because all of these feelings that Jesse has given her. Why did no one say, we don't have to separate? You literally did not have to walk away. You could have hung out more. Lucas stumbles upon her in the hallway and invites her to join him and his friends for a game of cards, and she accepts because she doesn't want to be alone. Switch over to Savannah, who is setting a table for tea and a meal with the other servants, and Sebastian come to bully her again for no apparent reason but to be a bully character. They also highlight her being unfuckable. I don't really know why. Sexual humiliation is always a thing in these kinds of books, but we're also given no reason to believe that she's unfuckable. Like, later we find out that she's a virgin, so is this supposed to be an insult if she is maybe choosing to not be loose like some of the other people in the house? That's not even given exploration because she doesn't even try to get with anybody and backs off of Will Ellis when she saw that he was sleeping around and that was the only person that she apparently wanted to sleep with. So where does this unfuckable come from? She doesn't flirt with anybody. She doesn't get turned down by anybody. She just saw that Will Ellis was fucking other people and was like, well, I'm just not going to pursue that. How do we know she's not just choosing to be celibate? Because from the way that the book is written, it looks like she chose to be celibate. Anyway, they bully her, shove her in a closet. Will Ellis rescues her. I literally have no idea why she's being bullied by them, because there is no way that Seb thinks Will is interested in Savannah, and Seb's not going after Jesse when they share a room and there are actual rumors of Jesse and Will being together, so why is there this focus on Savannah? Savannah is upset when she's pulled out of the closet, so she's both mad and horny at Will Ellis, because that's also a thing in this book. But let's be real, when is she not both angry and horny at Will Ellis? Then Bonnie comes in with the guys, and Will Ellis is hanging around, putting his feet on the table for no reason, and antagonizing Savannah further after the whole closet situation, because why? Other than to force her to yell at him. Will hangs around to make sure that no one puts the moves on Savannah for some reason, even though he's not even interested in her. They fight more with each other in front of the guests, and there is no backlash from the lack of decorum in anyone for these high roller people that they're supposed to be behaving in front of. And considering that Will Ellis is in a better position than Savannah, you'd think that he wouldn't want to actively be trying to get Savannah in trouble because he knows that he won't be punished, but she will. But he just keeps bickering with her until she throws a priceless antique cup at him that she definitely would get in trouble for if this book had consequences. She hides the cup, that's because she knows she'll get in trouble, but that doesn't really ever come up again. Bonnie calls for help in another room just to pull Savannah away, and then the girls do their hair. They also toy with the way that Savannah's dressed to make her a little less conservative, and she's like, I don't know, this isn't really me. Oh yeah, this is right before the random lunch social with a bunch of ladies that all hate Bonnie because of course they do. All of the women in every character but the love interests and friends like Will Ellis, who are also ex-lovers, hate the main characters of this book. All of them. The ladies at the luncheon think Bonnie is crazy, bully her, mock her dress choice, and then spill orange juice on her. This causes Bonnie to have a breakdown where she flees the room to go looking for her glow root to feed her addiction. She also has a breakdown because she can't find the glow root. Savannah tries to calm her down. She gets to a flashback. We get a flashback showing Savannah's mom also had a glow root problem, and her mom was also a prostitute who sold her kid out to feed her addiction. Will then helps Savannah take care of Bonnie with some bourbon, and they get her to sleep. Jesse's worried about Bonnie, but Will does his best to settle him. Then, in talking to Lucas, Luke asks Jesse what he thinks of Bonnie and his pursuit of her. Jesse gives in his full blessing, and he's also offered to be shown life and fun in New Orleans, all the prostitutes, all that good stuff, but Jesse turns him down because he's not ready for other things yet, since he's still in love with his previous person. Then we're back to Jesse and Bonnie spending time together. She's got a book, he's drawing her, she keeps moving, they're thirsty, they're touching, they're breathing on each other. She's like licking his fingers while looking into his eyes with heavy lust. He asks what the book she's reading is about, and she's like, oh, sex and death, and also sex, penises. Like, guys, their hips are literally pulling them towards each other when they're in the rooms together, I swear. Touching and talking about sex books and heavy breathing, and hands are going in places, interrupted by Savannah walking in on them, because one thing that you can also count on with these books is absolute blue balling forever until the last couple of chapters. Even Jesse is mad. Savannah's like, our hour is up. Savannah's like, your hour is up. Go away. So Jesse leaves. Bonnie is told that she's got an appointment, which is sitting with Lucas, who arranged a little something because of how mean the girls had been to Bonnie the other day. He talks with her, says how much he likes her personality, how much he likes her personality. Fuck those girls, they don't know anything. She's perfect in being different. And then he's telling her everything she wants to hear. A little buzz and desperation for a distraction. She has sex with Lucas, then they must go and meet her father. She's upset with herself though, because she thinks something's not right, and she wants to remember things. And even though she just had sex with Lucas, she's thinking about Jesse, and she wants to know why. Now there's a storm coming into New Orleans. The masters of the house are going to be gone, so the servants are planning to throw a party. Just before the party, Jesse and Will talk about Will's emotional trauma and how much Sebastian wants to be with him, and Will determines, yeah, you know what? I will give it a try to be the man that Sebastian thinks that I can be. So Will goes to Sebastian like this, and they have sex, and bam, they are now a couple. Savannah's reading a cowboy romance novel when one of Luke's friends comes in and flirts with her. The two of them are getting close when Will Ellis comes in and breaks them up to ask Savannah for help in preparing for the party tonight. He wants her to make food like cupcakes and cookies. Will warns Savannah that the visitors may not have the purest intentions for her, and she's like, what business is it of yours if I just want to be fucked, huh? Don't you go around fucking people? You had your chance and you didn't take it. This confuses Will, and he's like, when did I ever have a chance? And she says, when you kissed me. No, this is so dumb. This was 3 years ago, she's referencing. Will didn't remember because he sleeps around, but Saf's taking it as a personal slight, and she's angry that he didn't remember despite knowing how Will is. She then storms out, unconsolable, and runs off with Bonnie so that she doesn't have to talk to Will about anything, despite his chasing after her, and he obviously is interested and a different person than he was 3 years ago, not to mention he kissed her and he kissed her at like a really traumatic time, so it's not really a surprise that he doesn't remember. He might have even been drunk. So she's referencing the night that they brought Bonnie home, or whatever, it doesn't matter. So she's mad and upset and not talking to him. He runs off to go and talk to Jesse because he's like, bro, Savannah wants me, but I just got in a relationship with Sebastian, and no, I can't just break up with Sebastian. I made a promise to him, but like, I kissed Savannah 3 years ago and I want to be with her, dude, but I can't possibly break up with Sebastian. We just got together. Even if I'm not that interested in him, I can't just break up with him. You know what that would mean? You started this relationship immediately to cheat. Why would you do that? Authors, why would you do that? Do not lead this poor man on and pretend that you're the victim because you never liked him to begin with and you can't possibly break up with him. It's only more dumb because he says kissing her was like a drug and he wanted more, but he literally forgot that he did it until he was reminded of it 2 seconds ago. The two of them finished getting ready for the party, and despite what Will just told Jesse about his feelings for Savannah and her being like a drug that he needs more hits of, he walks into the party embracing Sebastian and basically announces to the house that they're together. Jesse sees Bonnie at the party and is obviously impossibly horny. The two of them are literally third basing it, dancing in front of everyone. It's described as them basically having sex with clothes on the dance floor. Everyone at the party is dancing like that, so yeah. And it's here, halfway through book 2, that we learn that Bonnie is half Korean for the first time. Like, that didn't seem thrown in at all, when it literally didn't matter in the first book, didn't come up in the first book, and it doesn't come up again in the second book, and it's never mattered ever. Will bursts into this moment to ask Jessie for help in dealing with the fact that both Savannah and Sebastian are here. Instead of just breaking up with Sebastian, he grabs a drink and complains about how complicated his life is. Then Jessie is dancing with Savannah. They exchange some info back and forth. Will takes Savannah from Jessie so that they can disappear off into the wild together, and this leads Jessie to go find Bonnie, admire her beauty and hotness, and then say the word, and I'll have you bent over a table in seconds. You can't contain the horn. Jessie is ravenous. They're later interrupted by Lucas because they're basically fucking on the dance floor around a bunch of servants. And, Bonnie, you're supposed to be getting engaged to this guy. What are you doing? Pan over to Will and Savannah over there dancing in the middle of everyone else, and Will is telling Savannah how much he wants to kiss her again. Bro, your boyfriend is here. Savannah sees Sebastian over Will's shoulder. He is that close. And she's like, well, it doesn't matter what you want now. You're with someone else. I mean, thank goodness for Savannah saying that, but obviously nobody cares, except for Sebastian, because he's getting cheated on right now. As if it's not a flag of some kind that she knows that he's with someone else, but he is openly throwing himself at her. What she thinks she's going to be getting. Also, people are whispering and judging her for dancing with the beast of the bridge, but Will literally came to the party in Sebastian's arms. Is he not gonna get judged for this? Like, how come nobody is looking at that guy and making rumors up about that guy? Is it just Savannah? Is it because she's endgame? So it doesn't matter that Sebastian is into Will? Came with their arms wrapped around each other? Will says he's trying to be a better man, and he didn't tell her no because she's not hot. He's just taken now. Seb breaks up their dance, and Savannah runs off, feeling rejected. She wanders around the party, not knowing why she's there anymore, constantly running into Will and Sebastian, until eventually she sees Will being in a heated argument with Patrick, the guy who'd hit on her in the library before. Before she can escape, when the combo is over, Will sees her and says that he was chewing that guy out to basically leave her alone. Bro, you can't stake a claim in a girl when you're already taken and you won't dump your boyfriend to be with her. What is this trash? Like, for real, you cannot be at a party dancing with somebody else, telling them that you want to suck on their face in front of your boyfriend while also saying that you can't be with her because you're with somebody else while also chasing off all of her prospects. Stop it! This isn't only dumb, it's disgusting. You're supposed to, like, be cheering for these guys to be together. Nothing is keeping them apart. It's artificial drama. It's artificially keeping them apart. It's not forbidden romance. He's chosen to be in this relationship, and he's stopping himself from being with who he wants to be with while pulling on somebody else. This isn't cute. This isn't something that you go, yeah, Will Ellis, you get out of that relationship. Sebastian hasn't done anything to Will, but tell him that he could be a better person than the one that makes him feel like he's a piece of shit. You don't get me to root for you by doing this, but you do get me to root for Sebastian to put a bullet in your head. Also, this conversation turns into Savannah being like, what's it matter to you who I fuck? If Patrick just wants to do the do, then that's my business, not yours. And Will is like, you kissed me. That made it my business. Bro, he is literally talking about a kiss from 3 years ago that he didn't even remember. That is not how this works, Will. You are not together. Her relationships are not your business. You told her no on the dance floor like an hour ago. But of course, he's over here taunting Savannah with just admit that you want me to fuck you. And the narration is like, yeah, I do want him to fuck me, but I'm not gonna say it. And then they're arguing about Bonnie and whose friend she really is, and Savannah is trying to use her as an excuse to run off, and Will is like, but she's my best friend, and you never asked me why I carried her in here that night. And Will is hurt because Savannah never asked about his personal life or his relationship with Bonnie. So now he says that she's the only family that he's got, and he tells Savannah about how Bonnie really is and who Jessie really is and how they're trying to bring her memory back by literally doing nothing to bring her memory back but hanging out, hoping that it does something, and Savannah asks how she can help. Click on over to Bonnie being dragged out of the party by Lucas, who is snapping at her and talking about bending her over something so that he can fuck her, since she had literally just been doing that with the help. Jesse shows up and takes Bonnie away from Lucas, and they close off into a room right after she was basically soft key assaulted by another man, and she's fine with Jesse making advances on her slowly in the room, blocking her in the room. They're gonna have sex until Bonnie actually calls him by his cage fighter name, because she doesn't know what his real name is. Jesse is then hurt, backs off, ends it, and Bonnie is like, no, you leave. I'm the one calling the shots. You didn't say no to sex with me. I'm saying it to you. While she sobs because White literally, he chose not to keep going with her because she didn't know what his name was. Now, we switch over to Will doing a kidnapping and murder job for Mr. Lee. The first and last time we see him do anything like this, specifically for the angst about how he's a monster the whole time. Jesse catches him at a bridge where he's disposing of the bodies. I didn't want you to see me like this, he says. But bro, you were a cocky son of a bitch in book 1. What happened? Jesse is comforting Will, and this is where Six Gun is brought up as having owed Lee for some big favor, and that is why Six Gun came and brought Bonnie back, even though he is the one that took Bonnie in the first place and then was chasing her the first book, I think, for Jones. I thought that was what it was. But also, in this, it says that Six Gun has given a 5-year exclusive work contract to Lee, which is why he also brought Bonnie back. Also, now he is Now Will Ellis is in servitude to Lee because of his dad's debt or the blackmail or whatever. Will is like, I am too damaged for friendship. Killed too many people! As if it isn't normal in the post-apocalyptic land. I mean, like, who hasn't killed a couple of Johns, right? Pretty sure everyone. So why is Will suddenly like this? He was not like this in the first book. I don't know what the actual setup is here. I couldn't connect the events of the first book with this book to make any sense at all. If you've read both and have any idea, let me know, because I couldn't. I couldn't get over this feeling like this was just an entirely different alternate universe book where the first one didn't really matter. Anyway, after telling all that to Jesse, Will also tells Jesse that Sav knows everything too. Savannah also snuck out to the docks and followed Jesse there to see Will Ellis as he is, and everything is really awkward. Though they make up, kiss, and Savannah's like, OMG, I'm kissing a man who belongs to someone else. Will says that he doesn't deserve Savannah because he's a murderer anyway, but Sav is like, it's fine, I love you, you wouldn't hurt me, so it's fine. Talk to me later about books that are like, oh no, it's totally fine if you're a murderer, it's fine, because you're not gonna hurt me, of all people, as long as I'm fine, do what you gotta do, bro. And then there's a scream, and it's Bonnie. Jessie goes running, and she's having a nightmare in her room. She and Jesse make up after their blue balling fight happened, and she informs him that she's been pregnant. And when she was brought back here to the house 3 years ago, she was given glow root during her brain surgery, and that resulted in the baby's death. Jesse's over here like, OMG, we had a baby together. We had a baby, and no one told me for 3 years. He holds on to her and they pass out together. The next morning, they're getting busy when, of course, they're interrupted because we're not close enough to the ending of the book yet for them to, get serious. But Savannah comes in because Lucas is here and waiting to meet with Bonnie. And whatever happened at the party before no longer exists, like his grabbing her and dragging her out of the party and threatening to bend her over and Jesse having to sweep in to save her. Don't worry about it. All the feelings are good. It's not even a thought in her mind. Basically never happened. This up though, since Bonnie is ditching Jesse for Lucas, this obviously makes Jesse angry, and so he bickers with Savannah till he gets into a fight with Bonnie about being strung along by her. Once Bonnie is off to see Lucas, Jesse confronts Will and Savannah about Bonnie being pregnant once upon a time and nobody telling him. We learn that Savannah was the one that administered the glow root, and she didn't want to tell him about it because she didn't want to make him mad. Jesse's gonna storm out, but instead he's like, hit me. So the two fight each other until they calm down. Then Jesse laments the baby being gone more, and that Bonnie has plans to hang out with Lucas. They're interrupted by Mr. Lee approaching to get both men ready for new jobs. Savannah and Bonnie are together with Savannah, telling Bonnie that she needs to go on a horseback riding thing with Lucas because she needs to get out of the house, because she personally needs to get out of the house. This is for Savannah's sake, to get away from Will Ellis. Savannah admits that she almost had sex with Will Ellis the other night, and she's bad because he's with someone else, so the fact that almost happened is just no. Bonnie's excusing this by going, if he was happy, then he wouldn't have almost had sex with you. Happy people don't just almost have sex with someone else. Bonnie, Why are you encouraging cheating? You should be encouraging Will Ellis to dump the boyfriend that he's with to get with Savannah, not encourage Savannah to help him cheat. Anyway, that plan works, and so Savannah is leaving the house, though she's not really going on horseback riding. It's just the excuse to get out of the house. Lucas is waiting for Bonnie in the courtyard, and Bonnie is flirting with Lucas as a distraction, and as Jesse approaches, she's like trying to make sure that Jesse knows that this is just a distraction and she's not serious about Lucas, and she's like looking at him like, dude, believe me, don't believe your lying eyes. This is just a distraction. It doesn't mean anything to me. You mean everything to me. Jesse, I'm not tickling his weenie because I like him, okay? It's not that. I really couldn't tell what feelings anybody in this situation really has with how much they do whatever they want to literally everyone all the time. Jesse goes away from Bonnie because he is jealous and upset, and Bonnie leaves with Lucas to horseback ride, where they continue to flirt because Lucas seems genuinely interested in her, and he is dismissive of all of Bonnie's red flags, which is always a good sign in a boyfriend to a girl boss. I like a mess, he says. They giggle together. He tells her about Manhattan. They shop for masks for Mardi Gras. It's good, except for the fact that she told Jesse that this wasn't real, and she's clearly flirting with this guy for real. Lucas says, let me get to know you, and let me show you who I really am, as they're kissing, and she's like, it left me wanting more and feeling conflicted because I really like this. I really like Lucas, but I also have feelings for Jesse, but this feeling is okay. This feeling is great. When Savannah left with Bonnie, she was actually allowed to go wander off on her own. So she's going around the town, gets in a little bit of trouble. Will randomly shows up because he noticed that she left the estate, and he kind of stalked her, but he figured that she would get in trouble. Then he takes her back to the estate, and he fixes her up with a medical kit after the trouble that she'd gotten into. They're at the barn when Sebastian shows up to take Sav to the boss. However, he's also mad about Will Ellis doing what he's doing right now with Savannah. Sebastian then nags Will about not telling him about the new jobs or the hanging out with Savannah, and accuses him of screwing around with other people on him. Which, fair, all things considered. Will acts like he should be offended by this, though, and of course, Sebastian is character assassinated, mad that Will is interested in other people, then yells that Savannah is the only one who didn't see him as a monster, so it's totally okay for him to be hitting on Savannah. I mean, Sebastian kind of encouraged him to be a better person and that he could be better than the jobs that he was doing that made him feel like a monster, and the whole reason that Will is with Sebastian is that Sebastian was like, you can be better than whatever it is that you tell yourself. So, I mean, Savannah's not the only one that didn't see Will as a monster. Will is the only one. Well, Will saw himself as a monster, and then other people that murmur about him being the beast of the bridge saw him as a monster, but Sebastian was like, I like you, you're not, we can run away together, you don't have to be this. Whatever. Forget about Sebastian ever saying anything, I guess. Savannah tries to comfort Will, but is pushed out of the room, so she goes to Mr. Lee to report the things that had happened with Bonnie like she was supposed to. Mr. Lee is unhappy with her performance and believes that she has been lying to him all of this time, so Mr. Lee gives Sebastian permission to punish Savannah corporally. He beats her and is like, Will Ellis is mine, you dirty skanking bitch. And then he leaves. I feel like Will Ellis just told you that he was done with you back in the barn, so he's not really yours if he was saying that he was more into Savannah because she treats him like a human, but okay, I would have taken that whole thing in the barn as a breakup. Over to Jesse. He's wandering around looking for Will, but no one's seen him. He runs into Bonnie basically sitting in Luke's lap as she reads, and he's mad jealous. Jesse tells Bonnie that Luke only thinks of her as a conquest, and Bonnie is like, so? I don't care. I guess we've forgotten that a couple chapters ago when she said that she cared about Jesse and that time that they spent together meant something, and that he said something about loving her. I don't know why we're here. And then Bonnie is like, I'll never know if Luke can make me happy if I don't try, so I'm gonna try. For no reason. I thought that this was a ploy to make her father happy while she was trying to discover why Jesse gave her feelings. I thought that she had feelings for Jesse, and so then she was less interested in Lucas, but she's left herself open this entire time to go for somebody else, and now just suddenly has feelings for somebody else she was never into. Jesse obviously explodes, yelling at her that he loves her, not Lucas, and then he goes off. Bonnie is like, oh no. And then Lucas approaches, asking Bonnie if she's okay. Now, suddenly, she's correcting him and being like, don't call me Audrey, call me Miss Lee. Because we're not that close, even though I was just like, I think I can do this. Bruh. Can we just, like, be consistent with what the characters want at any given moment, please? So Bonnie's talking to Lucas when she hears a sound on the other side of a locked door. After picking the lock, she finds Savannah beaten and laying on the ground. Now Bonnie is like, nothing matters anymore but getting out of this house. I don't care about Jesse that he said he loved me. We're getting out. Savannah's like, no, you have to get with Jesse if he said he loved you, and then get Will, and then we can all four of us run off together. So Bonnie goes, I thought you were just having conflictions with Lucas, and now you're just like, you know what? Never mind. Yes, let's all run off together. So Bonnie goes to Will to ask to take her to the fights to grab Jesse, and Jesse is in the ring fighting, and after the match, he and Bonnie make up in the locker room and have sex. She says his real name when they're having sex. Will runs in to interrupt them from going in for more rounds of sex because things are getting wild out there and they need to leave the compound like right now. Back at the house, they're confronted by Sebastian saying, I can't let you leave, because Sebastian apparently has worked for Jones this whole time, and while Sebastian is like, Jones isn't dumb enough to mark his spies, he does apparently hire spies who out themselves because nobody needed that information from you, Sebastian. You just forfeited it. The confrontation results in Sebastian being killed by Will, and Will having eternal anguish growing even more eternal. Will is snapping at everyone now and doesn't want to leave, and that William is gone. The kind William is gone. The last of my humanity is gone because I killed Sebastian. They return to the house to get Savannah. They are realizing how many spies Jones actually had on staff, and that Bonnie's father was distracted by the pit fighting. Was this a new thing, or was this going on 3 years ago when they lost to Bonnie? I feel like there are other ways that this could have happened, especially if Jones was Bonnie's uncle. I'm still so confused by the relationships of any of these people. There are people patrolling the estate now. Everyone is looking for their chance to run. They're having a moment talking about how Bonnie and Jesse got it on in the locker room, because this is a great time as people are walking around with guns looking for you, patrolling. Let's just talk about the sex game. Then about Seb confronting them and dying when the doors swing open to reveal a man with a big gun calling for Bonnie to meet with her father in the study. Bonnie has an empowerment speech saying that she was used and she's never going to be good enough for her father, even though he obviously loved her enough to try to protect her, even if he did it in all of the wrong ways. She's mad at him for lying to her about where she had been and what she'd been doing, and saying that she's not coming back here ever again. She claims that he never loved her while he's there, saying he does love her. This checks out as legitimately Bonnie's point of view, because she also did not believe Jesse when he said I love you in the first book, and completely rejected it, saying he should be with Clara, even when he was like, I love you. So they're at the docks now to get away on a steam engine. Bonnie finds Will trying to scrub the blood off of himself, but having a mental breakdown and not seeing clearly. Bonnie asks Will if Bonnie is still alive, because Sebastian mentioned her, and she doesn't realize that Bonnie is her since she goes by Audrey right now. Will's like, no, Bonnie is dead. She has her moment where she is like, I'm going to run away and have a new name and live with Jesse. I don't know why at that moment you wouldn't be like, yes, Bonnie is you. You fucking idiot. Like, just do it. There's all of this drama. He's supposed to be a monster now. Just tell her. I can't believe that she walks away from him at that specific moment where he's having a mental breakdown and washing the blood off of his body. But whatever, I guess, because, you know, being near Jesse and fucking again is more important. Savannah walks in and asks Will about Sebastian and how much he knew about that guy, which apparently was nothing. Lee shows up because Eddie, the kitchen woman, has tattled, and Lee tried to intimidate Savannah back into compliance. She watches Will kill the old woman and then is told that she's going to come next, but Will defies Lee and says he's not going to kill Savannah. Lee dismisses Will, and Savannah says that next time Will kisses her, she wants it to be because he wants to kiss her, not because he needs a distraction. I'm not so sure that holds considering the next time that they kiss, but you let me know when we get to the future situation. So at this point, I lost patience With the rest of the story, I had like 30% more to go. And so I summarized the remaining bits of it as quickly as I could. Will has another mental breakdown about being a monster and runs off in the dead of night to kill himself in the graveyard on top of Sebastian's grave, despite saying that he didn't know that guy very well at all. Then Savannah shows up and comforts him out of suicide. The two of them have sex on Sebastian's grave. We find out Will's got a big dick that he gave to Savannah, and Savannah was a virgin. Also, on Bonnie's side of things, that's pretty much where their story ends. They also are going to run away together. Also, on Bonnie's side of things, Bonnie and Jesse are hot for each other as the usual, and in each other's arms, and doing the do like you do. She also looks through Jesse's sketchbooks and sees a bunch of pornographic images of herself, with 1 or 2 innocent images of Jesse's child brother mixed in, because that's not weird. Drawings of hentai of your ex over the last 3 years, I guess. I guess that is a hobby. After a little more sex, he steps out of the room for a bit, and she keeps going through the sketchbook, seeing that he put scars on her body in all of these places. And he has a gun from her past, and she's like, wait a second. Why does he know all of this stuff? Why does he have this? He lied to me. He lied about knowing me. How he knew me. She screams at him, who are you? But doesn't give him any time to answer. This becomes her being so mad at him that she never lets him answer, then runs off to Lucas and immediately accepts the proposal while avoiding Jesse. Lucas is overjoyed, obviously, because he's like, the girl I was courting is interested in me. It's beyond ironic and disgusting that she's mad at Jesse for lying to her while spending the last 100 pages of this book lying to another man in order to avoid talking to Jesse, and she's lying so hard there's an engagement party and she's dancing sexually and intimately with the man who isn't her husband-to-be on the dance floor at her own engagement party in front of their engagement guests. Jesse and Bonnie run off to have sex again at her own engagement party, I think in a closet, without breaking it off with Lucas. And then she lights the estate on fire and they leave together. She closes out the book by saying she was running cons and hated every time Lucas touched her. We were in her head. This is a lie. You cannot do this in first person. I'm going to get into this in a little bit, but you can't lie to the audience from the first person on purpose so that you can go, haha, plot twist. Because that just makes you a bad writer. She was not running a con on Lucas. She was angry at Jesse and then was just like, fuck it in the end. Also, she was over here bragging about killing countless men and being heartless about it. How am I supposed to take this Will's whole thing where he's like, wow, 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 I'm a monster. Look at how many people I've killed. When you've got this bitch over here literally bragging about the countless men that she's killed. Like, it just makes Will look pathetic. You also go like, oh, it's such a big deal to kill people. Yeah, but then this bitch over here is like, no, it's not. Fuck. She started out the first book by murdering a dude in cold blood because he recognized her. Bonnie doesn't feel bad about killing people. Why does Will? What is this double standard? Either it's important or it's not. And I know that Will and Bonnie are different people, but like, are you trying to tell me that Bonnie is an evil bitch? Like, that's what I walk away from this with, is that Bonnie is an evil, cold, heartless bitch and everybody is just a tool for her to use. So no, I don't want her to be with anybody. I want her to be shot and thrown into a pit somewhere. I don't think that's really what you want for the protagonist of your romance novel, but that's where we are. So now the notes. The good. Fortunately, Harry was not in this book. It saved the child from being around the thirst, and for that I am grateful. The first couple of chapters were actually not bad on the thirst level, but the second that Bonnie gets introduced and Jesse are in the same room, it's over. It is so over. But again, thankfully, the child was spared this time. We did not get the grooming. We did not get the it's fine to fuck in front of the 10-year-old. Like, thank you. Thank you for small favors. Moving on to tension. Blue balling isn't tension. I hate to break it to you, but blue balling is not tension. We had this in book 1, and you think in a second book after the characters have already gotten together, they would figure out a different way to sustain the tension beyond P and V, but no. That's where it still is. It's beyond strange to me that the majority of the tension in this book would come from lusting, because there is so much opportunity in the plot line and in the way that this world is set up to go beyond P and V tension. Yet the characters are so focused on fucking that literally nothing matters. Jesse gets to Bonnie and his first thought is, I need to fuck her, versus I need to remind her of who she is. But even and he knows that she's got amnesia, but it's not like I need to remind her who she is so we can get out of here and get back together. It's, I need to fuck her. It's been 3 years. And even then, he does very little in pursuit, stops himself when they are getting close, and then breaks his own desire for no obvious reason. Bonnie does the same thing. Tension comes from things working against each other, not from characters wanting something and then arbitrarily, for plot reasons, putting a stop to it. Or because they fight against one another for no apparent reason, which is also what this makes everything about. The thirst. Continuing on with the blue balling, let's talk about the thirst in the book. It's a lot. It's so much. I remember forgetting how thirsty the first book was, and then reading the first book with Monty and being like, oh no. It's actually kind of sickening for me, the level of thirst in these books. It's always been a lot for this series. This book and the last book both feel like they were written from the perspective of characters who are sex addicts. Everything about Jesse is about the cock. How tight his pants are every time he sees Bonnie, how much he needs to fuck Bonnie. She says, I love you, and his cock immediately twitches. Like, it's that much. And don't get me started on the sketchbook of obsessively drawn hentai of his ex when she was gone for 3 years. Like, why would you put your child brother among the titties? What are you doing, bro? It's so much. You've got those damn shorts, this and that damn lip, and I want to bite that damn lip and fuck. Why was she so goddamn kissable? And oh, you have the most glorious ass constantly. It was. I needed an exorcism after reading this, and that's why we're here now. The cheating. Look, I ranted about this in my, romance tropes video, and I think I ranted about this somewhere else because this bothers the heck out of me. I need someone to explain to me why both the main couples in this book needed cheating to be part of their plot. Not even just cheating, but relationships they chose to be in, and they cheated. Bonnie technically cheated twice in that sordid attempt at a love triangle where maybe I have feelings for Lucas because he's nice to me, and I have to put off getting with Jesse for 300 more pages. You can win some people over with unrequited love and arranged marriages, but having Will be in a relationship just to lust after someone else the entire time and be a roadblock for why the two of him and Savannah couldn't get together, and him making the excuse that I can't break up with Sebastian, I have to lead him on because I made a promise even though I'm not really interested in him. I'm sorry, but you've already broken your vow to that person, your promise to that person, if you're openly talking about being with somebody else while you are with them. You don't have to have intercourse to cheat, dude. Being like, I want to kiss you, publicly, on the dance floor, if Savannah had said yes, you would have done it. Then you've got the whole Bonnie toying with Jesse by, I'm feeling so much for Jesse, but oh, I'm getting close and just toying with Lucas. Read my mind, Jesse, but also I'm actually really into Lucas and I kind of want to make it work, but also Jesse, but also this guy kissed me and I had sex with him and I kind of liked it, but also I love you, Jesse. But 12 hours later, I'll go, you lied to me, and then not let you explain anything, and then lie to somebody else to be engaged and hold it against you, and also hold it against him because I think he's yucky while telling him that he's not, and then I'll fuck you in another room while still lying to everybody. But it's cool because I'm the protagonist. You know, in another book, Lucas would be the main character, and his arc would be started by Bonnie cheating on him and doing this to him. But bro, it's just not cute to use people like this. I don't understand how this is enjoyable to read. Cheating is not cute. Lying is not cute. I don't know what this obsession is with cheating, but it's disgusting, and you're not an animal. If you can't respect a person's heart by not leading them on when you're not interested, you don't deserve them, and I'm not sitting here cheering you on to get what you want as you abuse the feelings of other people. You know what's actually really hot? Devotion, affection, love, dignity, respect for your partner. Wow, dude, so hard. Wow. Figure it out. Or be single for a while. Plot. Somehow in these 650 pages, there is no plot. There are so many options to be plot in this, but there's really nothing since Jesse and Will don't actually try to bring back Bonnie's memories. They just kind of hang out. And Bonnie's not actually courting her father's friend. There's no tension there. And trying to convince or trying to convince him to let her work on the, or trying to convince her father to let him, or trying to convince her father to let her work on the business if it needs help. This novel also would have been better if these were not Bonnie and Jesse involved in this, but rather some other characters who maybe knew Will, that could have been tied into Bonnie and Jesse on the settlement later on when they're on the run, when they run away. For now, it just feels like an alternate universe roleplay reusing familiar names, but with nothing that makes sense to tie into the previous book and nothing really explained, which is also amazing considering how much longer this book is. It also would have made more sense to just make them different characters with how opposite Jesse was in the first book. He was supposed to be a cinnamon roll himbo, but now he's a brutal cage fighter. He didn't even own a gun, even though he was a farmer in the first book. Also, how are you going to end the last book off by telling me that he's this badass character transformation motherfucking outlaw, but then this starts out with him not doing anything for his missing woman for 3 years and a child has to snap him out of his drunken stupor? What a way to castrate your own characters. It also makes no sense why they wouldn't try to wake Bonnie up by telling her the truth. The attempt at plot here makes no sense. There were so many ways to go, and the lying could have come on earlier on, and that mess, and her going to Lucas, and then you build the actual stuff with Lucas, and she doesn't know who to trust. Like, there were so many options, and none of them were taken. Characters. I think this book suffered from having 4 first-person point of views. They all sounded more or less the same. They all swore in the same ways. Bonnie and Will were even tormented soul badasses, and it was confusing. Aside from POV, they lacked characterization. Going back to the beginning of the novel, why was Will specifically cruel training Bonnie when he then turns very soft to her later? When he then turns very soft on her later as my best friend. It makes no sense how hard he is on her when he's so defensive of her later, and that hardness never comes out in any other situation but to torture her at the very beginning of the book. Also, when I get to the end of the book and in the author notes, see you referring to Savannah as a kind-hearted woman who approaches the world with grace, but all she did throughout this entire novel was scream and fight with Will. Even when he helped her until the very end when she could prey on his weak self to have sex with him, she's not kind. She lusted and pursued someone who was in a relationship, yelled at him constantly, threw a cup at him because he said something that she didn't like, and then taunted the guy's boyfriend with, "Lol, I almost fucked your boyfriend last night." You're not gracious because you dealt with abuse, and making your bitch character get victimized doesn't discount her being a bitch. Also, she didn't need to have sex on an ex's gravestone. This whole thing was just one big bruh moment for choices. Motivation. Because characterization was lacking, there was also no motivation for anyone. They all say they had motives. Jesse wanted to fuck Bonnie, Bonnie wanted to fuck Jesse, Will wanted to fuck Savannah, Savannah wanted to yell at and fuck Will. You can't follow their motivations scene to scene because from the beginning, you'd think Will's POV would have been to tell Bonnie who she was and see what happened from there. We were never given a reason as to why he kept everything from her, especially when Jesse got involved with her. Since we got very little setting and relationship, why did Bonnie even think that she had a choice in who she marries? Did her father love her, or was that a lie? Because we're told that she was marooned for protection, but then he's fine handing her out in this way, or she gets to go out by herself doing the horseback riding. Bonnie's glow root addiction was inconsistent. Also, if her father cared about her, Bonnie wouldn't have had a glow root addiction. She would have been locked in a room and tied to a bed until she got over that need. Her being known as Crazy Audrey was unreal because she never acted crazy. I mean, with a persona like that, you'd think that the ladies spilling orange juice on her dress would have just resulted in her literally stripping off her clothing, sitting down and acting like nothing happened, or something that was sort of a social faux pas. But no, she cries like a wilted flower, runs off, and destroys the house looking for drugs. It just doesn't work. Trauma maxing doesn't work, and it doesn't make your character more sympathetic to pile more trauma on. It just makes Bonnie look like she cried around people that she wasn't interested in fucking so that she could look like a victim, and then took down people that she and then fought with people that she was interested in, like physically apprehending the cage match fighter bigger than her. First try, no problem. Legitimately, most if not all of the choices in this book were not motivated by character desires or anything that made sense. They were motivated by what would cause drama, including the blue balling. Setting. There is none. How is this post-apocalyptic, but everything is literally normal with no complications based on the nuclear fallout that happened 20 years ago? There's nothing. There's like Glowroot mentioned and then Crater Beasts mentioned in the fighting match. Everything else is just like business as usual. There was no nuclear fallout. It does not show in any of this. Even more than the last book, Post-Apocalyptics felt like an excuse to do whatever you wanted with a vague setting of Western and dresses, but even the fancy dresses make no sense in this. Trauma abuse. So trauma, I got a spicy takeover here. Trauma is not a shortcut for character depth. Piling trauma onto your character doesn't make them suddenly a badass. You also can't be the biggest unaffected badass, but also the biggest victim. This book added in, I want to be a badass, but not a real badass, via Will Ellis. Also, how are you gonna have a character anguish over what he's done and consider himself a monster be one of the big choices you make for a quarter of your book and end in a chapter with Bonnie saying how relentlessly she killed countless men? Is Bonnie supposed to be liked because you're making a murderer out to be this horrible, damaging thing for Will Ellis, while Bonnie over here is being like, fuck everyone, I will kill anything, fuck you. And she's supposed to be a badass. She is really evil, like unabashedly so, and brags about it. It's also ridiculous that a little bit of orange juice or being unable to read would make her crumble into tears and need drugs. Because she did crumble into tears in the last book when she got made fun of for not being able to read. Is she a badass or no? Like, this doesn't work. She's over here happily murdering people. Are you that insecure that, like, you could have filleted Clara for making fun of you for not being able to read, but you just wilt like a flower for sympathy points? Really? I really despise this character and everything she stands for. Then the level you've got of making her evil while she also screams at herself for the pain that she deserves and the pain that she wants, her drug addiction. I don't care about any of it because of how evil she is. Yes, she deserves the pain. Technically, she deserves death. No, most of the character anguishing in this book is performative to say, look at me, I'm a sufferer, the martyr, writhing in pain, while doing nothing to repent or make up for what they've done. Not to mention, with Bonnie specifically, she couldn't remember her past. So what was it that made her feel all of this pain? She only knew what other people had told her that she went through. For how many pages this book was, it did not build into what the characters knew about themselves at all. Miscellaneous comments. So I'm totally cool with getting over the idea of characters outright stating how everyone around them thinks they're hot, how their only value and all anyone wants of them is sex because they're so hot, and then the character is like, but I'm not really beautiful. I get the inner angst issue, but Bonnie constantly having men throw themselves at her and women throw themselves at her and be a sex pistol, even in book 1 where she knew it and used it to her advantage on purpose, and then be like, but I'm not beautiful, like not really. Even if people tell me I am, I know that they don't really know me. That's different, dude. Stop it. It's okay to have a gorgeous female character, acknowledge that she's pretty, but also still have issues. She can be like, I am beautiful on the outside, but bro, I am a caustic rose. Like, do that. Have her acknowledge that she's pretty on the outside and she uses it to her advantage, but not be like, well, they say that I'm pretty, but not really. I'm not. And I'm also tired of how everything's gotta either fetishize virginity, looking at you, his name was Augustine, where it made Swanee a virgin like 4 or 5 times, or it insults it. Sometimes people just save themselves. It's fine to recognize that for what it is, but between like, lol, you're a virgin, we'll fix that, and I'm so special because I'm a virgin, tee-hee, for no reason other than for sexual harassment or humiliation, it's annoying to me. If it's special, it's special for what it stands for in the combination of 2 souls and the idea of having saved yourself for that special person who is your life partner or your soulmate, letting no one else see you or be with you in that state but that special person. It's not this special thing because lol, you're unfuckable or you took it in the ass instead so sex doesn't count. Finally, forcing interest in Lucas after the halfway mark was so painful. Just legitimately build it. Authors who don't build into the relationships or ideas because they know the character isn't in the endgame or will be evil and will die is just emotionally immature and a way to avoid them being hurt because they don't want to hurt a character that they actually care about. It is weak-willed energy. Now to comment on the final chapter. Bonnie regains her memory of who she is, and she's over here despising Lucas after she lied to him and cheated on him in the final chapters. Chapter 50 opens with, Lucas kept his hands on me all night. I'd run a lot of cons in my life, killed more men than he would believe. If he knew of the murderous thoughts running through my head every time he touched me, he'd run screaming. Instead, I kept a pleasant yet absent expression plastered on my face, and that suited him just fine. I don't know what this book is trying to do with Bonnie. She's just an evil bitch. Despite how it attempts to make Lucas look sleazy, he actually doesn't come off that way in how he interacts with Bonnie. The gossip Jesse overhears about just trying to nail Bonnie reads so forced, and it doesn't show through in any of the interactions Lucas actually has with Bonnie. And then you want me to hate him for liking her when she is literally throwing herself at him all the time, and he thinks that they're engaged and that she is showing interest in him, but she is actually like, ew, I want to kill him for touching me. But you're encouraging it and allowing it and making him think that you want it. I don't have any patience for this. I cannot dislike a man when all you do is lie, and then demonize people for falling for the impression that you give them, like, holy cow, and I'm such a badass. I've killed so many people. Bitch, step off. I am sick of this unrepentant, evil character just hating everyone, disrespecting everyone, sexually grooms children, and only thinks about murdering and fucking people. Like, Bonnie is so evil of a character, and I cannot understand what good there is in her. She is hateful, mean-spirited, and has no redeeming qualities whatsoever. And to end the book with this, not breaking up with the guy and then burning down your father's house? Either the authors really missed the mark on what they were trying to portray as a strong woman, or they really don't see the problem in what they've created here. And I don't know what it is. Not to mention that she's over here acting like she's running a con and knew what she was doing all along, that she never genuinely liked Lucas, but we were in her head. We saw her perspective. She was into Lucas and wanted to try to make it work with him for chapters. She was fawning over him even and telling Jesse no. You can't lie to the audience for the sole purpose of a twist ending like that and make it satisfying. You're not clever. You just give the reader more reasons to never trust you again as a storyteller. Final thing, Size King PSA. I don't know who needs to hear this, but length is not a measure of how good a book is. This book did not need to be this long, and I keep seeing people that brag about the lengths of their book and putting in like a bunch of meandering scenes, and like, character scenes are great, but a plotless, meandering book that is 500 plus pages long, wasting my time. Most books that I've read in the last year that are over 400 pages have not needed to be as long as they are. Cyborg Tinkerer, all of the His Name Was Augustine books, Shadow of the Conqueror, both of the books of both Leather and Lace and Guns and Smoke didn't need to be as long as they are. I could give you more examples, but I feel like that's enough. So those are my thoughts. That was my experience with Leather and Lace. Have you read it? Will you read it? Let me know in the comments down below. Looking forward to it now. I can exercise this from my mind. It's gone. Enjoy being poisoned with the knowledge that I now have. Though I saved you from a lot of the thirst, because when you get into the book, like if you like thirsty books, the thirst is real. And I did save you from that if you are not into the thirst. With that said, thank you so much for watching. Have a great weekend and don't die.
Was that Wayland Cross in the trunk? Do you know, or is that something that's still being figured out?
The person in the trunk was not Wayland Cross.
Is he in trouble?
We don't know who did it, but as the owner of the car, the longer he's missing, the worse it looks for him.
Cross isn't a killer. For the last couple of years, the average number of murders in Baltimore has been over 300, and it's been going up. Mind you, that's only whatever the badges count as official murder, and believe me, there are people that don't count when they die. Wayland? If you're down here, tell me. I'm not talking to the badges, I've been looking for you. They found a body in your trunk. Why? Did you do that? To the left, plain black letters read along the wall. You walked in the corridor. Once that ends, you chose the dark is on the right. My vision goes blurry. Flickers black and black and black for longer intervals until I can't see anything at all. I'm not screaming anymore, but my voice echoes back to me. Where the hell am I? You're dead, Josephine. Even smart people do stupid shit sometimes, right?